What's up? My name is Punk Brock, a punk rock guinea pig VTuber. And when I'm not Punk Brock, my IRL job is being a tour manager for some of your favorite pop punk and emo bands. I made a post on social media recently about my job that seemed to interest people within the VTuber community, so I thought it might be fun to explain exactly what it is that I do. What does my average day look like? What are the responsibilities? And most important of all, is it fun? First off, what is a tour manager? If you've ever been at a live concert and wondered to yourself, I wonder who set the schedule and hounded the band to make sure they were on stage at exactly the advertised time and made sure they didn't get too drunk, then yeah, that's a tour manager. A lot of tours are going to have different requirements, but in the absolute broadest terms, the job entails setting schedules for the members of the touring party to adhere to and making sure they stick to that schedule, as well as being the primary point of contact between any outside forces and the tour party. If the promoter needs to know what kind of rotisserie chicken your band wants, that's a you question. As far as my niche specifically, I tend to work with bands who play to between 100 and 3,000 people who are usually in the pop punk, ska, and emo scenes. You can get a good idea of who I work with from my Tour Stories series, where I ask band members to recount some of their most traumatic tour stories. If you'd like something to watch after this video, then boop. For the most part, we're traveling in a single van together. I know the assumption can be that every band is traveling in a big fancy tour bus, but oh boy, are those expensive. I'm lucky enough to work with a couple of bands who do tour in buses, and I can say that it is a super different experience with its own benefits and stresses. But for this video, let's just assume I'm talking about touring in a small, cramped, stinky van. I do end up taking on different responsibilities depending on the size of the tour. Some tours I will solely be tour managing, so I can dedicate 100% of my tiny brain power to making sure the rotisserie chicken has arrived. And then some tours I'll be wearing multiple hats. Usually this involves driving the van and setting up and selling the band's merch. But let's go through the tour management side specifically today, and if you're interested in learning any more about the other aspects of my work, then let me know in the comments. I've always wanted to say that. So before the tour even begins, I'm involved with something called advancing. This is making contact with the individual promoters responsible for the running of each show and exchanging information so everyone is satisfied with how the day and the night is going to play out. This is everything from what time we let people into the venue, to what time the band wants the rotisserie chicken in their green room, to what time the show starts, etc. It's generally not a super time-consuming thing, but it can be frustrating when the tour starts in a week and the Paris promoter isn't replying to a single email. And I just want to know if there's any chance I can park anywhere within a 16-mile radius of your horrible little venue. Help me! Other things to consider in this are general logistical needs. Do we have all the equipment we need? Do we have the vehicles we need? Do we have merch to sell? Does everyone have the correct visas to play in the countries we're playing? Blah, blah, blah. It's my job to make sure the band doesn't fly in on day one and realize we haven't booked a drum kit. Next comes putting all that information together so that everyone on the tour has easy access to it. Back in the day, we'd make a literal tour book with daily itineraries and useful information, but in the past few years, a handful of really useful industry-specific apps have released. Most bands I work with tend to use either Master Tour or Day Sheets, and they just act as a digital itinerary to let everyone know what's happening when, where the hotel that night is, etc. If someone asks a question about readily available information, you as a tour manager are legally required to respond with "Check Master Tour!" So the band landed, you're traveling together, and the tour is underway. If you're as annoyingly nitpicky as me, that should be the majority of the hard work over. Proper planning prevents people from putting you down because they didn't get rotisserie chicken. For real though, at this point, if you've put the work in advancing, at this point it turns from information gathering into cat herding. My main job each day is then to make sure we get from point A to point B in good time, make sure all my touring party is where they need to be when they need to be there. Group chats help a lot with this, but a lot of international bands still struggle with having full service over in the UK and Europe, so I can't always rely on everyone replying to my desperate requests for locations when the band is due on stage in 10 minutes. Aside from this, my job's really just to make sure everyone's happy and has everything they need for the show to happen. There'll be occasions where something will fail during sound check and I'll have to quickly Google a music store, run over there 5 minutes before it's closing. Or there'll be occasions where someone's bass guitar didn't make it on the plane, and it's now I'm sending out desperate messages to friends trying to find a left-handed bass in a tiny rural village in Belgium. This is where years of JRPG fetch quests can help you deal with real-life situations. Whilst the band is actually playing, honestly my duties can vary a lot depending on the artists in question. Some bands need help setting up the stage and equipment and like to have someone keeping an eye out during the set. I've had to swap out guitar amps or awkwardly had to tighten cymbals mid-song. The weirdest contribution has to have been when I, dressed in a full Pikachu onesie, was invited on stage to eat Taco Bell and take part in a pseudo dating game during the band's set. Once the show's over, comes probably the hardest part of the job for me. Wrangling a bunch of sweaty, overexcited, drunk adults and trying to get them in our van back to our hotel so I can actually get some rest. It's usually pretty unlikely that we're staying somewhere within walking distance from where they played a show, so the task is often hinging on that one band member who's had a little too much to drink and isn't ready for the night to be over. But usually at this point, the promise of a post-show fast food stop is enough to tempt even the most belligerent of musicians. And this is largely my day-to-day routine. I get up, I make sure people know where they need to be, make sure the show goes off without any issues, and then get everyone to bed afterwards. I like to refer to it as adult babysitting. I think a question I get a lot is how did I even get into this line of work? And I think for me personally, it'd have been something difficult to achieve without the contacts I made during my many years of playing in bands. A TM can also be the last thing a band realizes they need. So sometimes doing another job, in my case driving, can get your foot in the door. My personal strategy was to buy an old van and drive literally anyone and everyone, which, spoiler alert, didn't always turn out to be the best thing for my mental health. If it's something you're interested in, I think the best way to test the waters is try and become involved with a band or artist local to you. Whilst this job is a lot of fun, it's absolutely not for everyone. You're essentially working 24/7 whilst you're on tour, you're away from home for a long time, and the constant travel with irregular sleep patterns can be pretty difficult to deal with some days. If I had £1 for every message I've sent saying, I want to go home now please, then I probably wouldn't have made as much money, but I would at least be able to buy a rotisserie chicken. That being said, I've gotten to travel places and experience things I'd only ever dreamed of, all thanks to this job. So I never tried to take for granted how lucky I am to be able to do it. So the next time you're watching a band and you see a very tired, stressed person rush on stage to frantically tell the half-drunk singer they have to cut a song from the set because they spent too long talking to the crowd about rotisserie chickens, spare a thought for me.